going to call the meeting to order. Stand for the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mics are on.
Okay, we're going to move right into the superintendent's report. Mr. Ward?
Yeah, so I will say apologies to those folks from the outside who are beaming in to watch us. We're going to go a little bit in a different order. We want to start the meeting with a moment of silence in memory of Doug Coughlin. As you know, he passed away recently. He spent over 30 years working here in the district. So if you could join us in that moment of silence at this time, I'd appreciate it. Thank you. And the best, obviously, to his family as they're working through that. And thanks one last time to Doug for his service to the district. I did not know him, but I've heard lots of great things about him, and certainly there was plenty. The board, you have the obituary from the Post-Star is linked in your board docs information this week in my presentation. We have a couple of teachers that we want to recognize as well. I'm going to keep rolling along. So. Oftentimes, school districts area will get a teacher for Teacher of the Week through TCT and the radio station. It's not often that you get two in a row. And I don't know if it was exactly two in a row or if it was 1 week in between. But that occurred for us this year. So I wanted to make sure that we were able to, the board was able to recognize those folks as well. So they're both out there tonight, so I'm glad that both ladies could make it. But we do want to have both Danielle Kuba and Michelle Brock come up to the front and receive certificates from the president of the board, Jeff Gallin. And we want to congratulate you as a group for being Teachers of the Week, for those great nominations you received from your students. Congratulations to you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you. It was a special honor. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you so much.
You're
Congratulations.
very welcome.
Thank you.
And ladies, if you want to make a few comments, the mic is on.
I never say that, but tonight.
Congratulations to both of you.
Thank you so much.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Well deserved.
And not that recognizing teachers isn't a great thing that we do. I'll tell you, and you hear it almost every meeting. When we have students here, you hear it. My favorite part is recognizing a few students for their efforts and some of the things they've done. I got a call from Mrs. Strewing that Liliana Nunez might not make it. I don't see her out there. She's not hidden behind somebody. I guess she broke her wrist. Okay. Okay, got it. So she did. So she will not be here tonight. But we did want to thank her. She was recognized in the Chronicle for writing a piece on loving the bus drivers. And you, sir, are her bus driver?
Yes, sir.
So I want to congratulate you as well. I do not have a certificate for you. If I'd known you were going to be here, I would have had one ready to roll. But thank you so much. As many of the folks in this room know, my mother spent many years driving school bus up at Fort Ann. And that's the first person that kid sees in the morning and the last person that kid sees at night from our school district. So to have a young lady take the time to write and then be fortunate enough to be published in the Chronicle about loving our bus drivers, I hope that makes you feel special.
Makes me feel awesome, because she's like one of them kids that every morning she would wait for me, and now she has almost my whole entire bus route. I turn the corner after my third stop, my second stop. And every one of my kids, all the way to the end, they all have to wait for me. I have to slow down and literally use both hands to wait for them. Not wait for me, I can't wait for me.
Very, very nice.
It made a big impact on the buses, too, really special.
That's awesome. So we all hope that she feels better soon, and we'll get her back on the bus and back in school if she's missing. And we'll make sure that she gets this. But especially in the way things are going with bus drivers right now, we know that's a nationwide shortage in a lot of areas, but we're seeing it here in Hudson Falls just like everybody else. It's probably our number one concern with staffing every single day. There is concerns in many areas of staffing, but bus drivers are the first ones going out in the morning, so those are the 4 and 5 a.m. calls about staffing concerns that Kevin fields sometimes and I field other times. I'm glad that he answers the calls at 4 o'clock in the morning most of the time. And I want to speak about another student. He's got a great following here today with him, a young man who has been very successful this year. And Mrs. Miles took the time to send me some information on Louis Boyer and talking about all the hard work you've done over the years, right? And some of the struggles that you've been through. And this year you've gotten, is it Student of the Week twice this year already at your program down at the Myers Center. So I do want to recognize you and have you get a certificate from Mr. Gallen as well. We've got it right here for you. This is Louis Boyer and his family, and I want to congratulate Louis, have him come up and get a certificate, and I want to thank his family for bringing him, and congratulate you too, because this doesn't happen with everybody involved, the student, the school, and the family making it happen. So, but especially you, Louis. I'm going to shake your hand again.
Congratulations, Louis. Good
Thank
job.
you.
That's
It was an honor.
I'm so glad you could be here. Great job. Keep
It's
it
an honor
up.
having you
Thank
here.
you. Thank you.
Awesome.
You want a picture of it?
Yeah, can we actually get, Louis, can we get a picture? Can Mr. Gallen and I come around and get a picture with you?
Sure.
Do you have Brett's ready to roll? You're a superstar. We'll get one with the two teachers as well. We're going to get our sign in the background. You jumping in, Mr. Valencia? Okay, put my hand on your shoulder.
Sure.
Good enough.
You ready? All right, ready? 1, 2, 3. All right.
You want to come down and get one from front?
Yeah, go ahead, come in front here.
Yeah, that would be my sister Kaylee.
Is she a nice sister or is she? Okay.
Yeah, so,
That's awesome. Thank you so much for being here. Congratulations.
no, thank you.
And we're going to grab, can we get our two teachers of the week as well? We'll get a photo questions. Are you folks okay if we use that picture on social media? Okay. Awesome, yep.
Ready? 1, 2, 3.
Awesome. Congratulations. Thank you.
Okay, perfect.
Awesome. So what I would say is, I'm going to say one last thank you to Louis and his family. Thanks for not giving up. And I'm so glad that things are going well for you this year. It really, perseverance is something that all of us need, and I'm so glad to see that it's happening for you, Louis, going forward. We have other business that we're going to do. I do want to let you know that if you need to sneak out, it's okay to do so. It's okay to stay all night, either way. So I just want to make sure that you feel comfortable leaving if you need to leave, if somebody else need to be. But feel free to stay.
That applies to our teachers, too.
Yeah, and yeah, it applies to the teachers we recognize as well. Again, everybody's welcome to stay all night. It's a public meeting. We just don't want you to feel awkward about going. We wanted to recognize you first because that's first and foremost important this evening for us. A few more items on the superintendent's report. A lot of good news, I think. DSDMT, I had neglected. We had actually met prior to the previous board meeting. I think I got my time frame right. And we had a great meeting. And a lot of things were shared. A lot of great information was shared about what's going on between the buildings, focused on one goal that centers around climate and culture and improvement of attendance. I'll extend it a little bit, but it was so refreshing and so invigorating to hear groups talk about having that one goal and the work they were doing in their specific buildings to try to address that goal. And that's our first DSDMT meeting coming back. We had some last year, COVID. We were in and out, and kids in masks and all those types of things, but it seemed like that's the work that we want to do and should do. And last year, it seemed like we were a little less organized or focused. I don't know what the right word is, but I couldn't have been more impressed with the group that day. So I wanted to make sure I said that, and actually I'm remiss for not saying it last month. I had a few items I wanted to share with the board, and maybe you've already seen them, and if you have, I apologize, but I think it's worth having them be seen publicly by folks. Can you click on that link? Is it you, Mike?
Which one?
The Middle School Tiger Talk.
So I didn't know you had video, so I'm not sure you're gonna have sound.
All right, let's see what happens. If we don't, I can narrate, and I'll send it to the board.
Top of the morning, Tigers. I'm Greta Ankovic, and I'm highly disciplined, and this is Tiger Talk. The date is October 5th. And today, please stand for the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic of which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Now it's time for our joke of the week. Greta, I'm afraid for the calendar. Why? Its days are numbered. Moving on to the announcements. Next week is Spirit Week here at the middle school, brought to you by the character Ed No Place for Hate Club. Show your school spirit by wearing the dressing and theme for each day. Tuesday is tie-dye day, Wednesday is color wars, Thursday is twin day, and Friday is green and white day. The week will close by a pep rally on Friday with an annual tug of war contest, tie-game contest, and a team chant competition. That's right. Start practicing those team chants, Tigers. They can be up to 1 minute long, and it may include your team name and Tiger pride. Bonus points for posters, signs, and other props. And on to the after-school world of clubs. The first craft club meeting will be after school today. Diversity Club will meet Thursday after school. Student council members, don't forget that candy. If you haven't already, you can pick up your box of candy in A3. $112 will be due by November 1st. The three students who sell the most candy will be receiving a gift certificate to their favorite store. Today's lunch will be grilled ham and cheese, tomato soup, fresh baby carrots, applesauce cups, and milk. And now over to Andrew Batiste with the sports.
Thanks, Greta and Kylie. It's been a great start to the fall sports season here at Hudson Falls Middle School. The girls' modified soccer team is on a roll with 2 wins against Queensbury and Gloversville. Goals were scored by Molly Brisbane, Grace Dayette, McKenna Condon, Vanjie Johnson, and Juliana Persetti. Emma Kofan had a shutout against Queensbury. In related news, shout out to Bryn Terry on her awesome performance on the varsity girls soccer team last week, where she scored a record-setting 4 goals in 1 game. The boys' modified soccer team, who are right behind me right now, had their first win on Saturday over Gloversville, shutting them out 5-0. Both the boys and girls teams are gearing up to play Glens Falls this Friday, October 7th. So be sure to come out and support them. And over on the volleyball court, our A and B teams are working hard. Captains Nora Seeger and Skylar Barton are doing a great job inspiring their team. A team got the first win on Friday, September 23rd, and they're facing off against South Glens Falls at home on Friday. Our modified football team is 1-1 thus far, with 8th grader Zachary Croston leading the way as quarterback and a standout on defense as a linebacker. They play South Glens Falls next Wednesday. Greta and Kylie, back to you.
Thanks for the update, Andrew. Sounds like our teams are doing great. And now for Arm Scene with Sam.
Thanks, girls. This is Sam on the scene, and I'm following up on the first school event of the year, the school dance. It happened last Friday, and I'm talking to kids about what they thought about it. Let's check it out. So, what did you think about the dance?
I liked it when we got to circle and dance in it in front of everyone. I was a little shy at first, but then I got used to it.
Will you be attending the next one?
Yes.
Good to hear, good to hear.
Yeah, so we got to hang out with our friends and really experience things like dancing with friends and a bunch of new music.
That's lovely to hear. Will you be attending the next one?
Yes.
Good to hear, good to hear.
My favorite song was probably USA.
Nice, I love that song, I love it. I was wondering, how did it feel being a chaperone at the dance?
It felt great being a chaperone of the dance. There was a lot of excitement, a lot of enthusiasm on the part of the student body. It was a lot of fun being there.
There was a conga line that was started, were you a part of that?
Conga line, no.
Did you see the conga line that was going on at the dance?
Yes.
Were you a part of it? No. Did you witness the conga line that was happening at the dance?
Sadly, yeah.
Were you a part of it?
No.
Oh, well, that's really sad, because I was the one that started the conga line, and to hear that you were a part of it, it like breaks a piece of my heart.
So,
He's so cute.
Wow, Sam, sounds like everyone had a great time. I feel like we should mention that I also started the conga line. Yes, Sam, don't
That's
take
good.
all the credit. But that's
Yeah.
it for your announcements today. I'm Greta Andercoven, and I'm Kylie Supernaut.
yeah, so I just wanted to share that. And there's another one I'm going to, so I won't do it every month, but I think it's worthwhile. And that one's several weeks old now, just so that you're aware. But kids are doing great things. And I'm remiss, I cannot remember the name of that English teacher over there. And
Kristen Sheridan.
Kristen Sheridan, because she came from a place I used to work at, and I was upset when she was stolen to Hudson Falls. She's doing a great job with those young folks, and she did the newsletter at the middle school too. Prior to that, it's kind of moved into broadcast journalism here, I guess. But the kids are having a good time, working hard, and I wanted to share that. I also wanted to just, if you haven't seen the new 21st Century Space over at the middle school, that's what some of that furniture was in the background that you saw the two girls sitting on. It's a pretty neat space. We did go through it the night of the building tours for the board. I know not everybody was there, so if you ever want to take a glance at that, please feel free to reach out, and we can show it to you. But they're making nice use of it. And the next one, Mike, if you don't mind clicking that next one, we're going to go down to a younger group, and I've been giving up my airtime for some of these videos, so I'm happy to not have my face be on the screen on the weekends for everybody to see, and some of these student videos are out there.
I know because I saw my video.
Yeah, so good. And Cora, how do we show respect in school?
When somebody says, and know you respect them and don't do it.
How do we show respect in the cafeteria?
When somebody says you can't sit next to them, you don't sit next to them.
What about,
We respect people, or when they say things, don't talk in the hallway. And that'll make them happy.
what about in the classroom? How do we show respect?
And we show respect if somebody doesn't want you to touch them, you go away from them.
And you know what we do every day when Mrs. Velastro does the announcements, when we stand, right?
We say the Pledge of Allegiance.
Right, and we show respect by standing, right? Yeah. Is there anything else you want to tell me about respect?
I think respect is a good thing that you do when people don't want you to touch them.
Yeah. Respectful in the classroom.
Not to mess around when people are working.
Excellent. What about in the hallway?
Not to run down it.
How do we show respect in the cafeteria?
Not to mess around with their food.
How do we show respect in school?
Not to hit someone on the face. Not to give some people personal space.
How are you a good friend and show respect?
I like Alice a lot, and she likes it a lot.
So we can, yeah, so there's a few more, and they're linked in there. it's more of just letting you know what we're trying to do to reinforce some of the concepts that we think are important and know are important for our students to.
Hey, shout out to Jenny Middleton.
Yep. One of our new counselors, Jenna Middleton, is the one producing the videos and doing the questions with the kids. And so thanks to her for doing so. But I see some of these things. I'm not sure how much you guys see, so I wanted to take just a few minutes tonight to share some of those things. Because likely if your kids aren't in those grades, you haven't seen them. And I also try to send them out ahead of time because I know they're trying to release them for public effect, right? So I don't want to ruin the buzz by putting them out early to board members because I just want to make sure they do it exactly how they want to do it. But thanks to the people who are working with those youngest students and thanks to the folks that are working with the middle school. There's great stuff going on in the other buildings too, but those are two examples for today. So I wanted to make sure you had a chance to see them. So Kristen Sheridan for the middle school Tiger Talk, and then Jenna Middleton for the KC Respect videos there for this evening. And again, there's a lot of other great things going on. Just two quick examples. And I have head for December. Our next board meeting is the 13th, and that's when we'll have the executive session for tenure review. As you know, we started that process when I started here. It was a pretty long meeting. So I would say if you ever pack a snack for a meeting, that is the one to pack a snack for. Although we have streamlined and everybody was brand new to it. All the principals were new to the process. The board was new to the process. We're not sacrificing any quality, but we believe we have a way to do it a little bit more in a more streamlined fashion. So be prepared for that. As you know, we want to make sure that we're getting the very best people. I want to make sure I'm putting the very best people forward to you folks. We want to make sure we're recruiting the very best, and the folks out, and at least a couple of the folks out, I think all the folks in the audience want us to have the best folks working here, and as part of their units. So it's important work. It just takes some time to do it the right way. So that's what I needed to do, I think. Did I miss anything, Kelly?
I think that's it.
The board presentations are linked that we have coming up for the rest of the year, but that's.
Oh, yeah, sorry, the board presentation schedule is linked there too. We're getting back to normal. We're trying to get back to normal, so we're trying to have announced board presentations. Can you click on them, Mike?
Sure can.
Please. So you can go through, I'm not going to go through them all. You can go through at your leisure, but you'll see it lists at the 13th. The presentation will likely only be, unless something else comes up we have to present, will only be the fact that we're doing the executive session for the tenure review. I know the holiday board meeting there's a lot going on for everybody or for many people in December. But you can see the rest of the list, including a special ed review. You can see I have Mr. DiCaprio on there to present on kind of how his role has evolved and how he and I are working together on different projects because he's relatively new to the district. He's in year 4. Mr. Paluncci's been around for 44 years? 14 years, sorry. And you can see that list, and it also includes the curriculum presentations that we had spoken about last school year, where we said we would have one of our core subjects and one of our special subjects each year. That way, in a 5-year cycle, you would likely see every area of curriculum presented to the board in a public session. So I just wanted you to have that information, and thanks for reminding me, Kelly. Back to you, President Gollin.
Okay, so we move on to some board action, just to approve some routine items. And at this point, I need a motion to accept the minutes of the regular meeting for October 11th, accept in order filed the minutes of the Committee on Special Education, and accept the order filed the minutes of the Committee on Preschool Special Education. The dates are all on the agenda. Do we have a motion to approve? So moved by Mike, seconded by Amanda. All in favor? Opposed? That carries. Okay, so that moves us to presentations. Anything else?
No, I'm just counting how many folks are here to make sure I know you do, but I do. You know what I do.
Mr. Paluncci.
It's your turn. Thank you. About a month or so ago, while we were in the Buildings and Grounds Committee, we were talking capital project.
One of the things that was requested is that this project has changed dramatically since the beginning, and it's taken quite a few years to get to where it is now, where they've actually broke ground out front as of Monday morning at the high school. So we were asked if we could go back and talk about some of the twists and turns that this has taken over the years, where we started and where we've ended up now, and then even talk a little bit about where we're looking to go in the future at the end of it. So we completed construction on projects back in about between 2008 and 2011, depending. Those were the XL projects that were done before. They started before I got here, and they were completed. So basically what occurred is we had a little lull in the action there for 4 or 5 years. And then we had a building condition survey done, and that's done by our architect, and they're generally done every 5 years, and they're exactly what it sounds like. It basically goes through and it takes a look at all your roofs, all your structures, to make sure that they're sound and safe, but it also gives recommendations on when things need to be replaced and upgraded. Generally, your roofs and things like that will show up in those when their warranties run out, is when they need to be replaced, because then it becomes very expensive to fix them, and also it's generally the useful life of the roof. So we had a building condition survey done in October of 2017. At that point in time, too, the architect that we had used for many, many years was stepping away, retiring from being an architect. So in December of 2017, we got together and we decided that we wanted to do an RFP, or request for proposal, for architectural services. And we did that, and we ended up with several. I want to say we had like 7 or 8 groups that put in proposals. We basically went through those, and then we did interviews with several of the groups. And in July of 2018, March Associates was appointed, and that's the architects that we have today, with Steve Wickman. So after he was appointed, he started doing building walkthroughs to see exactly what we needed. We used that building condition survey, and then also Dave McKeegan was walking around. We did take input from buildings and building level administrators on things that they might have saw that we may need to look at. And the first scope of work was completed in November of 2018. At this point in time, the district office was down at Burgoyne Avenue. We were actually looking at possibly doing some work on that. If you all recall, if you went in the bathrooms at the district office, and it's raining out, you would see water coming in through them. It had a roof problem. It had several different issues, so we were looking at possibly doing repairs, but the problem we had with that building was that it was not student occupied. So that would hurt us with state aid. It would basically be all out of pocket there. At that point in time, we actually were contacted by the county, who was looking for some additional space. We walked them through the building, showed them everything, disclosed everything to them, and in January of 2019, they made an offer on the building, and we sold it at the end of January. The district office went. So at that point in time, the district office moved up to D-Wing. With the scope of the project, we had a couple of different options, but with the original scope, we went down to SED for review, which was, this was when we were discussing adding wings to some buildings. Made our case down at SED with them. Basically, that takes time for them to take a look at. In the meantime, the architects were doing architectural designs and drawings, and it took a few months for SED to review them. So the original scope of the project that we started at was $30,230,000. And what this involved, after closing the district office, we were talking about closing the kindergarten center And what that was going to be is there was going to be, that's where the one wing at the kindergarten center was going to be the new district office. And the other wing was one of the options was to have that rented out to space, whether it be through BOCES or another organization to rent the other wing of the building down from the district office. There actually were discussions at first about still keeping UPK there with the district office and the wing, which is now housed by the kindergarten students. But when we started talking about classroom additions, we changed that plan to to making that the other half a rental property, and then reconfiguring the district. And the goal was to cut down on one of the transitions that kids had to make from building to building. So there was drawings done up for an addition at the primary school, basically a wing, and in addition at the intermediate school. So at that point in time, the primary school would have housed UPK, K, 1 and 2, and then the intermediate would have been 3, 4, and 5, and then from 6 on is the same as it is currently. And one of the other additions that we were looking to do down there was to basically make the intermediate school gymnasium the same size as what the primary school one was, which would have been a rather large expansion on that existing footprint. While we had this scope, we were getting ready to move forward with it, we did hear from facilities planning, and they notified us that none of the additions would be aidable. So the gym in the two additions, the addition at the primary and intermediate school, they had gone through the drawings, everything was great, everything was structurally sound, we could go do that if we did not want to get a penny of state aid on it, which your districts are always welcome to go and do projects for additions, but the big thing with us is whether we're going to get close to 90 cents on the dollar back in aid on it. So, and basically what that's derived from is they take enrollments and they look at enrollments district-wide, and if you're looking to put wings on buildings and additions, you really need to show that you have growth, and it's also based on what are called building aid units, which are student counts. At this time, we didn't shrink like a lot of Washington County did, but we weren't growing dramatically for the state to say, yeah, they really do need an addition. And I think it hurt us with closing one of the buildings too, when it came to trying to get that, to get those other items aided. Now, on the next slide, you'll see we go to capital project vote in February 23rd, 2021. Now, there's a gap in there from what we've been talking of about a year and a half. That's COVID. Basically, March of 2020, we ran into COVID. It was very difficult to have meetings to start to push this forward. So it really stalled right in there. And then after things came back after COVID and got back to normal, that's when we started pushing the project forward again. And we had a budget vote, or a capital project vote on February 23rd, 2021, which was successful. And once we had that vote, everything was turned into SED. All the plans and specs and drawings were turned into SED. At this point in time, we are now down to the $16.977 million project that we currently have. We had to pull out all those, we had to pull out the gym, we had to pull out the, in both additions. And basically what we did is, as we looked at that, we looked at what we were willing to do when it came to the local share, to the local taxpayer, on the average house. We came up with a number and we looked at where we wanted to be with that, and that's how we trimmed that scope down to the $16,977,000. So we had an original scope of $30,230,000, and I'm going to say this, in 2017-18 dollars. Okay, as we're finding out in these projects, that's changed dramatically. But we brought that down to the $16.9 million. So we still have all that scope that did not go in this project. We decided that we were going to phase it, basically phase 1, phase 2, phase 3. So we still have that scope, and when I talk in a couple slides, that's going to come up again, of the things that we wanted to do. So, but what we focused on is the things in that building condition survey that really needed to be done, and then some of the key items like the library and the auditorium and things like that, and the roof on this building was one that we really had to do, but we wanted some things that were really going to affect the kids. I mean, I know roofs and boilers affect kids, but really the spaces that they get to use, we wanted to be able to do something with that too. So we received SED approval in March of 2022. We went out for construction bids on April 12th of 2022. They came in high. We accepted one bid at that point in time out of the 5 majors. And then we rebid, and we received bids on September 21 of 2022. And those bids were sufficient. We had enough money to award those bids. We were not able to award the alternates. And in this process too is also the start of an energy performance contract, which has spun some things off to the energy performance contract. But on October 5th, we had the kickoff meeting with the contractors. And as I noted, what was Monday? The 7th? The 7th, the first shovel / jackhammer went in the ground here. And that entrance has been started, and they're prepping and getting ready to start over at the middle school too, once they get this one cleared out, to really start rolling. So especially once we get to December, this thing is really going to start to roll in this district. You're going to really start to see a lot of work being done. So it is rolling. So basically we're 5+ years out from when we first started this process moving forward. We did have a gap in there of about 1.5 years with COVID, but that's why, as we've got this one rolling, now the next push here is, what do we want to do in the future? And starting to move out. We've already got a large portion of that scope built out, and we've also gone through, we should be doing another building condition survey here within the next year. Generally, they're done every 5 years. COVID, because of that 2-year gap in there where you couldn't get people in your district to do the surveys. Now they're happening about every 7 years. I'm guessing it'll start getting back into that 5-year cycle. So we should be having another one done probably within the next 12 months. So as we're going through this, we've already got the old one. We have the architect that did the old one, so we're going to have that information. But some of the things that were listed, some of the bigger ticket items, that were either saved for phase 2 or not able to make it in phase 1. We're doing upgrades to the art and technology rooms. We were looking at doing state-of-the-art art and technology rooms, a D-wing renovation, weight room and fitness center, basically bringing that weight room out and basically doubling the size of that weight room, and designing it in the manner that we will be obviously working with Ryan and the coaches on how to do that. Parking at the bus garage. This was a big issue, and the bottom 2 are both at the bus garage. Parking at the bus garage, we don't have enough parking spots for the employees. I mean, right now, we are down transportation employees, but still, so what we're going to do is we're going to expand that parking lot back into that wooded area, have a nice parking lot there, and then we're also going to bring our fuel tanks above ground. That's one of the things that we discussed with the architects. There will be some form of a housing on them, but by bringing them above ground, that takes out a lot of the, as we go down the road, if there's ever a fuel leak somewhere around, it's taking us out of that. Everything's going to be above ground, so that'll help us with DEC and groups like that. Obviously, there's several more roofs that we have to do as we continue through those things, and also boilers in different schools. But we've got this scope where we're starting to push it forward. We're starting to price all these things out as we look forward to. And remember that we have the power line coming down through here over the next couple years, which is going to drive money that is specifically designed for capital projects. So we're trying to line those up and get those together so that we can start with phase 2, and what we received from the pilot and the community host agreement for the power line can offset the local share, and it looks like we're going to be able to do a lot of construction moving forward, and kind of just get that ball rolling. One of the other things we're going to start utilizing now is the state allows for one project. It just becomes it's part of your budget. You delineate it when you put it out to the voters. We did one about 5 years ago, and when we did the stage in the auditorium. And basically what it does is it allows you to do one project for up to $100,000. You're aided the next year. So the concept is we pay the $100,000 one year. We have another project, $100,000 the next year. We get $88,000 back, which is our aid ratio. So it really only costs us $12,000 moving forward. And you just keep rolling those forward. And what that allows you to do, and basically it's misleading. The project, when it's 100,000, we're going to get about $80,000 in construction costs because of different fees that you have to have in the capital project process. We still have to have architects, plans and specs, designs have to be done. So, but those are going to move forward, and what that does is that allows you to knock out a lot of the smaller things that you have. Like if you want to do some door replacements, if you want to do some window replacements, $100,000 doesn't get you a whole lot anymore when you're talking about capital projects. And I know at the state level, there's been a push because that's been 100,000 since
The 90s.
the 90s, right? Yeah. There's a push at the state level to make that 250,000. Then you would be able to really start to get, I mean, you would have 200,000 in construction costs. You could really start to do bigger things. But we want to do those at the same time that we're doing these projects, and then they can just pick up these smaller things that we have to do and upgrade. So we're going to start rolling those forward. So in budget season, you'll see the budget, you'll see the buses, but you will also see something delineated for the capital project and a description of what that is for the $100,000 project. So these will be rolling in all different directions here moving forward. But it's going to allow us to get a lot of work done here and really get the place up to standard on what the vision is moving forward.
Is that it? Outstanding. Questions, thoughts for Kevin? Thanks for Mark for the prod to say that, hey, we've got some people that weren't around when this all started, including me. Let's talk about the history from the beginning. So I appreciate the foresight on that, Mark.
Brings back a lot of memories.
I bet.
Okay, anybody have any questions? Okay, that moves us to the next presentation, Mr. DiCaprio.
Sure, thanks. So Dan asked me to update you on the ESSA, the DCIP, which is your comprehensive improvement plan. This is when you get a tag from the state based on performance. And these have been around since the early 2000s, back when it was NCLB. It used to be a model of consequence. They'd give you literal red X's and green checks for different things. And if you didn't perform, they always threatened to take your money away. I don't know that they ever actually took any money away, but that was the system that was in place. Perform or we jack your money. They've moved to the complete opposite model in the past couple of years, which is a model of support. So those districts who are underperforming, there is a financial incentive, but they also changed their whole approach in terms of, hey, how can we help? Do you need people out there? Can we give you suggestions? Here's a model for planning your action plan. It really has changed 180 degrees since I've been doing these across my career. So we have to do one because we are on a list. So here's your table of contents. I just figured I'd do it in timeline style. I won't spend a lot of time on it because you've heard me tell this story before. I think you've heard me tell this story even before I was hired here. Back when I was a BOCES employee, I was doing this for you. So going back to 1819, the state says you are a potential district. We've looked at your last year's performance, and we see that you're underperforming in a couple areas, so you may be tagged next year. And sure enough, in 1920, we were tagged. Then COVID comes along, so you got a pause and a restart. Now we're through COVID from the state's eyes, so they're restarting, that's their language, they're restarting these plans, and we go forward from there. So what gets you tagged, without going into the big matrix spreadsheet style of it, the state looks at your performance. They look at 3 through 8, third grade through 8th grade ELA tests, third grade through 8th grade math tests, 4th and 8th grade science, Regents exams, foreign language, ELA math, social science Regents, graduation rate, absence. They look at everything. And they also look at those performances, not just in your whole group, not just in how Hudson Falls is doing, but they'll say, how are your white students doing? How are your special ed students doing? How are your free and reduced price lunch students doing? And based on those subgroups, we cross-reference it with those categories. That's what may or may not get you on a list. So those bullets there are our cross-references. We are tagged based on a low graduation rate, high chronic absenteeism, low assessment scores here in the high school. right? And all three of those, I remember talking about this when I was coming on board, which is it's really one problem. If your students don't come to school, they won't perform on the Regents. If they don't perform on the Regents, it's going to be hard to graduate. So those three bullets, I really wrap up all in one. Dan and I have been saying now for a year, if we can just get our kids here, we know we have a great faculty. We can just get our kids here, great things will happen. So if you're tired of hearing us talk attendance, we're not done yet. Okay, we're going to keep talking attendance until we're not talking attendance. And then, so those three things, most specifically with our students with disabilities and economically disadvantaged students. We are the lowest level of plan. There are certainly some districts out there, and when you think about the Big Five, when you think about Rochester and Buffalo, Syracuse, some of the challenges that those bigger districts have, we're not those. We are the lowest level of consequence, the least onerous form of a plan. Basically, they say, please write a plan, please give us a plan, we'll give you some money. We'll give you some suggestions on your plan. This is, our plan comes out of the work of the DLT, which is our department chairs, grade level coordinators, team leaders, administrators, who have spent the last year or two talking almost exclusively about attendance. A quick slide, I'm not going to read it to you. These are the items where we're spending the money. If you remember, 2 years ago, we had teachers going out all the time after school and on weekends to make Hi, We Miss You visits out to our students' homes. Nothing like, hey, you haven't been here, here's your book, here's your homework, where the heck have you been? No, hey, we miss you. So we did lots of those, and we paid teachers to go. It was something we could do. We had a little pot of money. We thought it was important. Please go. We'll support it. Last year, you saw us start this Attend Today, Achieve Tomorrow. So that's a system of incentives, small things, tchotchkes for the little kids, bigger tech type stuff for the older kids. But everybody knows there's consequences for attendance. You get the letters home, you get the phone calls home, you get all those negative side things. We decided to put some things in on the positive side as well. Okay, so Attend Today, Achieve Tomorrow is the incentive side. It's the carrot as opposed to the stick. And then, of course, I know you've heard Dan talk about it recently, and you'll hear more about it as we go forward. But the idea with this money now, and if we have it in the future, is to put it towards this outreach coordinator, somebody whose job is solely to deal with attendance district-wide. Not a social worker in-house, but somebody who would be out knocking on those doors, somebody who would liaison with the principals and the related service providers, somebody who has connection to the community agencies, somebody whose job is just attendance. That's where we're going next with this work. Real quick on the boring stuff, when COVID hit, the federal government said you don't have to measure. The state stopped measuring. So we had a year where there was no measurement of are you getting off the list. That was great that there was no getting on a list, but it also meant there was no getting off a list. We were held in limbo. And then the second year of COVID, there was, these are my words, not theirs, a restart light, where if you remember, there was no consequence if your students didn't take the assessments. There was no 95% attendance, participation rate for the tests. Regents were basically optional. You remember that 2 years ago? That was restart light. Some things were back in place, but we're just sort of ramping up. Now we're into a one-year plan where that whole list of things I started with, they're only measuring some of them, and it's only for this year. Based on this year, they will tag future potential districts again, which, if you remember, that's where I started us back in 2019. 2019, you become a potential district. On the positive side, all target districts will be exited. That's a fancy way of saying we won't have a tag. If we have a tag now, they're going to get rid of all of those right off the bat. On the negative side, they're going to start labeling potentials again. We're probably already a potential for absenteeism, graduation rate, students with disabilities, all those things you heard me start with. The, I don't want to end on a negative. The concerning piece, the team from State Ed who's presenting on this stuff, they are using this this metaphor we heard a lot back in 2012, 2013. They're talking about building the plane while it's flying. I'm looking at Jen right now, who knows exactly what I'm saying. That was the phrase they were using back when Common Core came out and APPR came out and Race to the Top, and we're not sure what we're doing with all this money that's coming from the feds. We're building the plane as we're flying, so here we go. That's exactly what this team is saying. We have a one-year plan, and we're not sure what we're doing next year. Okay? So that's where we're at. We have our plan in place. We have our money in place. We have a plan for using the money. We think we're doing good things for kids. We're working on getting these kids up and off the list, but uncertain what the future holds as far as being on a list in the future. Questions? Yeah, Mike, please.
So early on, I think it was probably the September meeting, you mentioned that numbers were looking good for attendance.
Yes.
How are they looking as of today?
Still good.
Still good?
Still good.
Yeah.
Daily attendance is up by 5 to 10% in every building, including the high school, which is always our hardest challenge. We just looked at it last week, I think.
Yep.
This time last year, we were at 84, 83% daily attendance. So 15 out of 100 kids are not coming. This year, we're at 90% daily attendance. You want to get to 92. That's the aspiration. So we're good in terms of daily attendance. The flip side of that, which you can ask me about later in the year, is chronic absenteeism, which is who's not coming. Any kid who's absent 10% of the year is chronically absent for any reason. Again, that's state rules, not ours. So if it's 20 days into the school year and you've had 2 doctor's appointments, you're chronically absent. You miss 2 out of 20 days for any reason. So as the year goes on, I start to check those. There's no point really right now at, say, 50 days into the year, but at 75, 100, 80 days or so, I start looking at chronic absenteeism. So check back on that. But yes, our daily attendance is up. It's really positive news.
For sure.
So I have 2 questions. The first is, we had talked about the outreach coordinator. You had to ask the civil service how to post that. So how close are we to posting that?
Yep, so we received a response from civil service.
Oh, that was quick.
Yeah, unfortunately, it was not the way we would like the response to be. So we do have an executive session tonight to talk about employment of specific individuals and possible contract negotiation.
Okay.
So I'll provide some detail about some things there because it will affect the employment of specific folks.
Okay.
But it didn't come back favorably yet.
Okay. So my second question is, I'm always like a long-term goal girl. So we were a potential. We were on the list. There was a pause. We're still on the list. Then they're erasing the list. And then we're back to being a potential. And then we're on the list. Still on the list.
You got it.
The list gets erased. And then we're back to being a potential. What is the point of this? And how?
It's the, well, I'm not going to answer that one. Maybe after the meeting. The rules are, they come from the federal government. If the state's going to take all of this money from the federal government, the rules are, going all the way back to NCLD, that you must test your kids.
But there are children being left behind. We're just not counting them because we're erasing the
Well,
list and starting
we don't call it
from
NCLD.
scratch.
We don't call it NCLD. It's not NCLD anymore, right? So
What is it
I'm
now?
going to try not to be snarky. It's
ESSA.
ESSA. It's
Every
every
student-
student succeeds.
But every student's not succeeding. That's
Right.
why we're on the list. And then we're not on the list.
So
Then we get back on the list.
I go back to that service piece, which is, you're right, not every student is. How can we help? Where prior to just 3 years ago, it was not every student succeeding. Figure it out, or we're going to pay for your kids to go to a charter. Figure it out, or you have to bus them somewhere else.
Do you think there's a greater potential for us to get off the list and stay off the list because it's a support model now instead of a punitive model?
Sure, carrots are better than sticks.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I'm going to add one thing to that local schools have more control over how you spend those funds. I mean, at the lowest level, you have the lowest amount of funding coming to you, but that's why you have this presentation. Part of the presentation tonight is because you have to approve the plan. And I hate to ask you to approve a plan that you haven't heard anything about, right, in a period of time. So I wanted you to have a little bit of background on that. Because if we don't have the approval from the board as part of our submission in the portal, then the money doesn't come. We're already doing the things that we say we're going to do in the plan.
What else can I tell you?
Probably 100 reasons why a kid isn't absent,
That is
or
$1,000,000.
1,000 reasons. But what do you think has been successful so far this year? So attendance has increased. Is it now COVID's over and they want to get back with their friends, or what? Is there any one thing that you think has helped?
Yeah, I don't know that there's any one thing. I don't know that there's any one thing. It feels normal again. There is work in every single building, both explicit in terms of we want you here, we miss you, we care, to implicit, to just everybody's here and cares and we're back and we're figuring this out. No, I don't have any one thing that we're doing. If we did, I'd buy 100 of them.
I'm gonna comment on that. So no empirical data, but I certainly think that the staff, the targeted staffing that we added for this year to provide more opportunities for kids, and the counseling and social work services that we provided, I think make a difference. Again, no data yet, but there's more to provide to kids. There's more, and we have, that's what our kids need. So again, at some point, we'll get you some real data on that, but it's going to take a little bit of time to do that. And I don't mean like 1 year, I mean a couple of years after COVID to come back and talk about it. But that's vitally important. And I'm saying that because you're going to hear from me again in a few months, right, Mr. Ponce, when I come and say, hey, there's a few things I want to do because I think they're good for kids. And some of that has to do with talking about adding some staff. I'm just upfront about it, completely upfront.
Does anybody have any further questions regarding the district comprehensive improvement plan?
Thanks.
Thanks, Mike.
Okay. So at this point, we need to make a resolution on that. So be it resolved, the Board of Education of the Hudson Falls Central School District approves the DCIP. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
So moved by Heidi, seconded by Amanda. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That carries. Thank you, Mr. DiCaprio.
Thank you.
We move on to the next item on the presentations, and that's going to be Mr. Ward and Mrs. Andrzejkovics regarding the NISBA conference that they both attended. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Do you want me to lead into it, or do you?
Do it.
You ready? Okay. So Heidi and I had about 3 hours out and 3 hours back, right? Actually, it's about 4 hours out.
Yeah.
Because President Biden made a secret trip to Onondaga Community College to talk about some, I believe, a chip plant maybe that was being built there. So the thruway was a parking lot for several hours because they just shut it down. And I understand that, but I wanted to put that. So we had a lot of time to talk about how we would do this. So we talked a lot on the way out. Heidi had not been to the conference previously, right? Am I getting that right? So I said, hey, there's all this that's going to happen, and I tried to play good tour guide when we got there too. And on the way home, we talked about how we're going to roll this out. There's so much that we saw. We both spent 2 days there going to sessions the thing picked us up at, the shuttle was 7 a.m., and then it was 5 p.m. before we were back up to the hotel. And then there was some lighter sessions at night. And I said, well, how about we do this? We just take and maybe put the title of each one of the presentations that we actually went to up. We try to talk for 1 to 2 minutes tops on each one, and at the end we have a link to all the presentations that occurred at the whole thing. And so you can go in and you could actually look at the slideshows, whatever notes they have. And if you have specific interests about one of the ones that either Heidi or I went to, we're happy to talk about them. And that's what we said we would That's what we said we would do. So we're going to try to do that. If we get longer-winded than that, somebody reach out and grab us.
So I think I didn't send you the links. I sent you like the bios.
We got it.
I
You
got it.
got all.
We're all over it.
Oh, you're the best. Yeah.
We move on, Mike,
You got it.
please. So Government in the Sunshine was me, and it was actually the morning of the last day. Always worthwhile to go and listen to that. You have to be aware of who your presenter is when they talk about what you should be doing as far as Government in the Sunshine. You guys know there are plenty of rules that dictate what school boards have to do. I did sit through the session. I want to say I'm very glad that we had already taken care of and passed our resolution and taken care of our policy to get everything in alignment for when the emergency resolutions from the governor expired back in, I think it was October 15th. I forget the exact date, but it was right around there. So we're in good shape there. It raises questions and conversation and things like that moving forward. But we're in a good spot right now. I just wanted to put that out there. There was some school districts that asked, and I understand that there's board members, there's administrators, there's retired folks there asking questions. But some of the questions that were asked by other folks made me a little, made me feel really good about where we are. Let me say it, I'll say it that way, right? It'll be a positive thing. So the second one, did we do it by person, so it's going to be me for a while? Probably. Supporting academic and emotional success with technology. Got to spend some time in a group working with a gentleman. It was a data and collaboration tool that tried to pull in some of the SEL factors along with test scores and attendance to provide reports that you could use to identify students who might be struggling and ways to address that. It ended up being a little bit sales pitchy, but not completely. So I did get some information about it. And I did share that with Mike a little bit. We've got a couple of different things we're looking at for data systems up against the one that we currently use, which is called 5Lab. So we're not sure if the system they were talking about is something we want to do as opposed to 5Lab, but certainly we're having a conversation. And will you flip to the next one, Mike? And you'll see I was kind of in a thread out there. I went and saw Saving Lives with a Student of Concern team. I was trying to see, what data is there where we can identify students early if they're struggling, and struggling in a bad way. And then went and listened to this woman who presented was a counselor who was at Virginia Tech at the time of the unfortunate events that occurred there. And then there was a full-time position for her in working on how to identify students who are using a team approach. So it interests me very much. To be honest, I need to know more about the approach that we already use here. So I have scheduled to meet, I think I meet tomorrow with the head of the counselors, so Jim Shaw, right? Just to talk about what we do and share some of the materials that I had. But to be honest, I'm not as familiar as I want to be with what we already do. But more to come. Again, I felt good about where we are from what I've heard so far in comparison to some folks that were there. And I felt like there was some things that we could gain from what folks were talking about there too. So I thought it was a useful session. Marley's the next one on the slideshow. Do you want to, go ahead.
This was a speech pathology bucket list item for me. I was there as a board member, but to hear Marley Matlin talk in person, I could have touched her, would have been arrested, but it was so inspiring. They had so many inspiring speakers, but she really talked about, so growing up, she was deaf in the 80s, and she talked about how her parents chose public school over sending her away to a deaf school and all the barriers that put in front of her and how they overcame them, which is what public school is so great at doing. And it was so inspirational, and I just, stars in my eyeballs. She was such a great speaker, and she went on to do some amazing things in her professional career, but she always brought it back to her background in public education, how she was raised with love and respect, and how when things became boundaries, how her family and friends and community figured out how to overcome that. She was amazing.
Awesome.
Okay, so this was me. Before I talk about this specific workshop, I highly, highly recommend, I know it's taking time out of your work week, but if any of you have the time and compunction to go next year to the NISBA convention, it was completely worth the hassle of having to cancel clients and, you know, set up transportation for my children and meals for my family and all of that. And it's not a vacation. I mean, we were up early and we were up late, and it was just this hotel to this hotel. But for every time frame, you had a list of like 5 workshops. And sometimes it was really hard to pick which workshop to go to because they were all really relevant to stuff that we talk about and is brought in front of the board. Dan and I decided that it would be redundant for us to go to the same workshops. So he would pick one, and if we both had like a similar one, then I would pick like my plan B one so that we would come back with a wealth of knowledge. It was 100% worth it. Sadly, because we got stuck in traffic, we missed a little bit on the first night. So this was the Not Just Pink or Blue was about gender identity versus how you express your gender is different than gender identity. And I was like the youngest person in a room of people that were mostly elderly, and I was like, they're going to have to call an ambulance. We were talking about some really, really intense things that impact students, and there was every single person in that room wanted to know more about it. And instead of putting up walls, was like, all right, well, tell me the information I need to go home to my board and have this make sense for my school district. It was just a great conversation, great presenter, but it was, you know, all of the things that we talk about when we're talking about diversity and equity and inclusion, things that you may not know about someone by looking at them, but are going to impact how present they are physically in school, but also mentally in school. It was eye-opening. Then we went to, I went to a part of the, to back up a little, part of the wisdom that Dan brought to this, because he had been to them before, was you look at the presenter, and sometimes there's like, when I go to a speech pathology conference, if they're talking about ARTIC assessment, then at the break you can buy their ARTIC assessment, like that kind of presenter, or like a BOCES that really put this into place, and here is the results that they had, or someone from a school district that put this into place, and here were the pros and cons to it, and how, you know, how they would iron out the wrinkles. So this was a graduate student that followed 4 teens who had been hospitalized because of depression, and made a mini, like a biopic on them. And so you watched the movie, and then they talked about their path out of depression, and they each had a different therapy path. And then they had the director and the producer and one of the students who was now like in her 20s and finishing graduate school. And that was very well done also, and I thought really relevant, especially because I know I have teenagers at home, and especially during COVID, there was super depression happening in our house. So it was interesting to me how articulate the 4 students were about talking about really heavy parts in their life. And then the next one was 2 very different college professors talking about their friendship, and essentially, again, there was a lot of diversity, equity, inclusion. It's what people are talking about. I think talking about things helps us work through them and helps us process them. And so I went to a lot of workshops that weren't marketed as DEI, but probably fall under that umbrella. And so they were talking about how a lot of people look at their friendship and are kind of confused by it because they don't look like they have any commonalities. But they were also collegiate level musicians. And so the gentleman played the tuba, the woman is a pianist, and so they would like talk for 5 minutes about their friendship and kind of expectations they brought to it that when they realized were not true, kind of brought them closer together. And then they would play music that like matched what they had just said. It was very interesting. And then the individual rights and collective responsibilities workshop also made me feel real good about where we are as a board and all of the hard work that we have put into our trainings and our yearly goal to have professional development. Because there were questions being asked that I knew exactly what the 2 lawyers who were leading the workshop were going to say, and I knew that it wouldn't even be a question for our board. But it was kind of affirming to sit there and be like, all right, we've worked really hard, we've trained really hard, and we're on the right path.
So
Back to you, Dan.
treading water or moving forward. So this was one that had 3 superintendents from 3 different schools talking about strategic action planning. And as the folks who have been on the board for a couple of years, and not to put Mike or Vince out, no, that's been on your board goals, to have a strategic action plan, 3 to 5 year action plan. So I said, I'm going to go to this one and listen. And I got to hear them talk about how they moved through the process and talk about folks that they used, consultants to help them move through the process. Because in your initial goal, it was talking about partnering with a university or a professional group to do so. I would put a pitch out there that this is something that we want to start talking about. Last year, and I've said it a few times at meetings, last year we were like, let's have school be open. And that was like the goal for the year. That was all we could concentrate on. It took up a lot of time and effort to do so. And I feel like we were really successful at that goal. It's time to get back to building a strategic plan. That's not work that I have done myself previously, but I do think it's a worthwhile endeavor, and it's work you guys said you wanted to do anyway. So I just want to make sure you still want to do it. This is like me saying we should do this. We should start doing this. I'm of a certain age, and so are the people who sit directly to my right, and maybe that's good or bad news for folks. But you want to have something that this system is going to be here long after we're gone, and let's have a roadmap for people. So when they're coming into the seat as new folks, that we're moving down a trail for improvement, so we have good things for our kids. I'll say it that way, and that's what this was really all about. And it talked about having focus groups with people from the community and people who employees and folks at large and parents and all those types of things, and how that information was collected and gathered and became actionable items for the board and for the school district. So more to come on that. I'm hoping that the board is interested in still doing that work. So you're going to hear more about that from me. And then a conversation. I put the. Do you want me to want me to talk about the good one, or you want to talk about? They were all good, but it was awesome. We had 2 great morning sessions. Marley, who I didn't remember, but after she talked about some of her roles, and she actually showed one of the newer movies that she's been a part of. And then the second morning we had Billy Green, who's New York State. You can see it in the picture, Teacher of the Year. A little bit eccentric of an individual, but a fantastic message, fantastic energy. And that second morning for us, which is the third morning for other folks who go out for the full conference, I tell you what, there was no trouble with that teacher holding several hundred adults' attention and providing a strong message. And we did get to hear from Dr. James Baldwin and Dr. Betty Rosa. Dr. Rosa was in her office in Albany because she had to be in the city later that day, but Jim Baldwin was up on the stage. And we had heard like the same things over and over, but there was a couple of different things that we heard that day. So I'm glad that it isn't their coffee talk that they've done, because we saw them We saw them at ASBA last year, right? A couple of us were there and saw them, and I had seen them earlier in the day, and they said the same exact thing, and I had seen them in August, and they had said the same exact thing. And we're kind of like, well, it sounds like they just got their cues with each other, but this was more interactive, and they provided, it sounds like they've got a solid plan for moving things forward, especially with, they talked a lot about CTE and opportunities for kids for CTE, both through our BOCES centers and through.
Pathways to educate, or to graduation.
And pathways to graduation, and with real seriousness, which is exactly what we need for our kids. It's exactly what we need. And when I say our, I mean all kids, but exactly what our kids here need. More pathways to graduation, more pathways to better life outcomes, more pathways to the job market, so. And then on the last page, you can click on that link. It will take you out to all the presentations. I don't know how long exactly they keep those up there, but once you go out and get them, you can email them to yourself and then you have them. But I don't know if there's other things. I would say the same that.
I just, on the, I'm sorry to go back.
Did I miss one?
On the human identity, not just pink or blue, I feel like that slide changed as I was hovering over it, right? Because there was also another workshop I went to that was DEI packaging for the equity. Yeah, so that was also really good.
Somebody deleted it on us.
I don't know what happened.
All right.
But to go back a little, I'm sorry, before you sum up, that one was about how it was a superintendent of schools from down in Long Island was talking about how the school changed the name of a road that was in their hometown that was named after the president of the KKK, and nobody really knew about it because it was so long ago, and then a student found that out, and the students attended town meetings. It really got the kids interested in civic leadership, and they changed the name of the road, and that, what I loved about that one, and I think the link is in, the video link is within that presentation. The students did a video about the process and the outcome, and they were some of the most articulate students I have ever heard speak in my life. So that was a good one to click on if you're interested.
Got it. Awesome. And I would put the pitch, and I think I sent the dates out to everybody in one of my updates a couple weeks ago. It's in Buffalo, which is a little bit longer ride, and it's a great conference if you have the time or if you can commit the time. And I get that everybody cannot. I understand that completely, but it is not a waste of your time.
No.
It just isn't.
Plus, during the lunch break, there's a big expo, and
Oh, yeah.
Dan, we walked around, we saw electric school buses were out, and you could look at their engines. I didn't know what I was looking at, but he did. There were like demonstrations on bulletproof glass and security systems, all kinds of mental health counseling. What was that guy? He was doing his PhD.
Yeah, the guy with the little stickers for
Yes.
he was the guy from the social, one of mine.
Yep.
Yeah.
It was just really
He talked to us a little bit about suicide prevention. It's a hall of expos. Your architect firms, there's a lot of,
Yep.
you can, if you have a question about something to do with schools, so you get a little bit of a sales pitch in that area, but they also, there's free lunch in there at lunchtime, that's how they get you in, right? And then there's free ice cream in between this session and that session for 10 minutes. But yeah, that's also a worthwhile endeavor to go in there. If you like free pens, you can get close to 1,000 of them over 2 days. That was not our jam.
Accurate.
That was not our jam, but
Yeah.
yes, you can.
I gotta clean that stuff up in my
Mini
house.
tape
I don't
measure.
have any pens. No.
But if you want to go, usually I get the date, Kelly and I get the date on our calendar because you want to register quick and you want to get your hotels quick, or your hotel is a long ways away.
Yep.
And we strategically, so the conference ended at 11:45 on Saturday, and 11, I think it was 11:35. By about 10 after 12, we were in the Dome after the conference. And so I bought us tickets to go see Syracuse play against Notre Dame, and they lost, but we got to go and see a game. And my son does attend at Syracuse, so I got to see him a couple times
Yeah, it was great.
while we were out there.
So,
Good.
sorry, it threw me off when the slide changed.
Yeah, I saw that. I just
didn't
thought
wanna
maybe my
skip
eyes.
over it, so I'm sorry.
That's it, I think.
Okay. Anybody have any questions? Okay, thank you for that presentation. That moves us on to public comment. Do we have any public comment? Okay.
Well, I was kind of hoping I'd get a chance to talk after Mike is done because, and Mr. DiCaprio, excuse me, talking about ways that we can support climate and culture and attendance brings me to speak in front of you today because our teachers would desperately appreciate the ability to have the access that they used to the school tool in order to support kids, for safety, for professional responsibilities like manifestation meetings and other ways that we support kids by being in the know in terms of discipline. So I'm just throwing that out there because it's something that's very important to us, and I know we've been working towards it. Mr. Ward has been, it's on his list, and I know that you've been working as well. But I'm just putting it out there publicly because it is something that our members continue to ask me about daily, and it's been a bit of a stretch. So we're really hoping that we can get that resolved soon, so that we can perform our professional responsibilities with all of the tools that we're used to having to help us with our students. Also, in the same vein, trying to promote culture, climate, and attendance. I'm sure you've heard about the 5K that's taking place on the 20th, and I'm sure most of you are training and ready for PR. But I have to tell you, it has been a really great experience working with Rotary, working with the district, the members of our various units. The wrestling team is going to have a whole bunch of guys running. I think basketball is going to be helping at the mile markers. It's really shaping up to be exactly what we were really, really hoping for it to become, and that's a community event, a Hudson Falls event. And being able to have the chance to honor Coach Luciano's legacy. He went to, my father went to high school with him. He was my father's coach. And I had him as a PE teacher at Dix Avenue when Doug Coughlin was our principal. You know, so it's a really, it's a special event. And certainly Frank Bunoff, another Dix Avenue dandy. And Operation Santa, we're going to have all those folks there. So I just wanted to let you know that it's going well, and I really appreciate the school support because it takes a village to make this happen. We're a town, a full school district, so we've had a great deal of support from local businesses. It's exceeded all of my hopes and dreams, and just hope it doesn't snow. But that said, it's kind of fun to run in the snow. I'm just going to put that out there if it happens. I hope that doesn't deter anybody. So that's all I have to share. If anybody has any questions, yes.
So as a parent who has been ready to throw one of her children's Chromebooks through the window because of School Tool, what did you used to have as teachers that you don't have anymore?
We had access to discipline. So if I had a student, perhaps in my class, I was noticing some behaviors or whatever, I could check to see, or if it was a pattern, if it was something that was going on, and it would help me to know if there were prior referrals. It might change my conversation with a student to try to redirect. In the cafeteria, we see a whole bunch of kids for lunch duty. Special ed teachers, when they have to have a manifestation, even a legal proceeding, they have to have access to discipline records because it may be relevant to that student's IEP or disability. So there's just a whole lot of different ways that it can be helpful. And I don't think it's not something that people are using in an inappropriate manner. It's a tool that we've had at our disposal. As long as we've had School Tool, that has helped us as, you know, the folks, the adults in charge, to make sure that we're helping kids. I mean, we all have different relationships. We work hard with our kids to get to know them. And, you know, I might have a student in my homeroom who maybe was suspended. I can have a conversation with that student and say, hey, how's it going? I'm glad to see you back. You know, it just provides more opportunities for us to support kids. and to promote safety. Because I might even have a homeroom where the student who was suspended, maybe there was something that happened between that student and another in my class. I want to make sure that I'm able to keep the temperature down in my room.
Was that a privacy thing?
It's, from what I understand, and I'm no legal scholar on education law, but from what I have taken away from the information online is it's a local decision. So.
And there's no, so sometimes an agency will like pull out this tool and then put another one in its place. Has there been anything else put in its place?
I can only see discipline referrals that I have written.
Okay.
So. It's
Being a
just,
speech pathologist, I live in HIPAA,
right.
this is just screaming privacy to
Right.
me. But
Right.
I don't
So,
know in
however-
a school district if it extrapolates the same way.
Right, but to that, we also have, several of us were trained on, had the glucagon training. So, we know who the students are, we know how to administer life-saving medicine if we need to. If we're going on a field trip, we know the kids that have really severe allergies. We're trusted in a lot of different capacities when we're with our kids. So, so in that spirit, it seems that it's appropriate as professionals that take kids on field trips and can possibly, and hopefully aren't in that, the students aren't in that situation where they need life-saving help, but we're there for them. So we just think it's important that we have access to any information that helps us do our job to its best, or to support kids. I mean, really, culture, climate.
Thank you.
I'm glad you gave the shout out for the run because I had forgotten. So,
Did your long run in last weekend?
yeah, we hiked 3 mountains. I did it. That was enough. I also want to just put, while we're going back to things I forgot, the Wall of Distinction, National Honor Society. I want to make sure I mention that again, that what a fantastic thing that is. If you have an opportunity, if you haven't had an opportunity, I saw my first one back in 2012 when my sister-in-law was inducted into the Wall. And this weekend did not disappoint. It was nice to be back in the same room together again. And I think, is that posted? Did we record that online, Brett? No, we did stream it out, but it was not recorded. All right, good enough. So if you get a chance, if you've never been, please, first Sunday in November is what it is every single year. All right, I'll try to be quiet.
Any other public comments at all? Okay, that moves us into our committees. We start with personnel, Mr. Canady.
So I'm going to take that one today, but I want to start by letting Mike go first on one specific personnel piece, because it's related to athletics. And I think it's important that we call it out individually, yeah. No, I think go for it.
So unfortunate news coming out of the sports world. Jerry Kilmartin is resigning after 11 years of leading the boys varsity soccer program. I know I probably speak for everybody here, but we want to thank him for his commitment and dedication to the program and all the Hudson Falls athletics.
Yeah, so thanks for that one. So thanks to Jerry. Thanks, Mike. I'll go back through. And some other, we had some other resignations of folks from different, Jerry was on my list, with folks from Quiz Bowl and lunch supervisor and things like that. I don't want to call everybody out by name, but I want to thank them for their service. That Quiz Bowl takes a lot of hours away from you at night, running up to Queensbury for those competitions, which I absolutely love. And folks who do lunch duty, the specific one was in the high school for a period of time, a long period of time. That's a great job, let me say it that way, but it takes a specific set of skills, and it leads to a lot of relationships that you're building with folks. One I do want to call out is Kathleen Archambault is resigning from her position of school bus attendant for the purpose of retirement. She's been with us since 2012, so thank her for 10 years of service. That's a difficult, it's a challenging position that has to have the right set of skills to do well, and to be able to last in it for 10 years. You've done something really well, and I want to thank her for that, for our kids. Going down through, you'll see one that's a little different. If you looked at it, you saw that Jim Murray is up to be, you're going to hear cross-reference this in policy likely. You'll see he's on there. That's a compliance appointment based on a review that was done by the State Education Department of our food service program, and I know I'm stealing some thunder from you over there. And we'll add that for Jim Murray to the purchasing agent for nutrition services to our July list going forward, but we've got to do it now to be in compliance with the audit that they did. And you got a couple of standard medical leaves on there. I'm glad that we've got some more intramurals, and I'm glad that we've got some more rec appointments. And if there's any specific questions, I can address them sometimes with the help of Kelly and Kevin and Mike.
Anybody have any further questions? No, see, okay, so by consent, that, we'll approve that. Moving on to athletics, Mr. Fitzgerald.
All right, so last month we had 10 of our student athletes participate at the Foothills Council Leadership Workshop. These students were able to collaborate with students from other schools within the Foothills Council regarding the importance of sportsmanship and leadership. They also assisted in starting the development of a Foothills Council Spectator Code of Conduct. We have some congratulations to offer to our student athletes who competed in the Fall Section 2 Championships, golf, girls tennis, girls swimming, and cross country. Individually, we'd like to point out Annabelle Lindsay. She placed second in the Section 2 Division 2 Diving Championships. Our girls volleyball team reached the Section 2 Class B final. Noah Tyler placed in the top 9 in Section 2 Golf Championship and will play in the state tournament in June. So congratulations to all those students and our teams on their accomplishments. Registrations for winter sports still ongoing. It's currently open on Family ID. Make sure you get your children registered so they can have everything they need to be cleared and participate in the first day of practice. First day of practices for junior varsity and varsity sports will be Monday, November 14th. Modified practice begins Monday, November 28th. And there will be a mandatory student-athlete parent meeting next Thursday, November 17th, 6 p.m., high school auditorium. This is for parents of high school winter athletes. Our athletic director will be present with information from the Athletic Training and Behavior Rules Handbook. And there will be some information coming out later this month regarding some open hours for our community in the fitness room. Make sure you're following our social media to get those updates as they're released. Any questions?
Thanks, Mike.
So we got a couple things to approve here. We'll just get back into it.
You gotta do audit, right?
Yeah. You want to do audit?
Kevin's going to pinch hit for Crystal,
Okay.
since she's not able to be here this evening.
Okay, thank you. Audit committee met last week. On the agenda, we have the treasurer's reports for the month ended September 2022. We discussed the balances as of 9/30. Within the general fund, we had $9.4 million. And in total cash, we had $13 million. This is obviously the time of year when we start receiving taxes that we become flush with money. And then obviously it filters down throughout the remainder of the year. So right now, we're in good shape financially when it comes to the treasurer's reports. How do you want to do it, Jeff? Do you want to just do the approvals?
Yeah, we can do that.
Yep. Okay. So are there any questions on the treasurer's report?
So you want to just do it or not? Okay.
Yep.
So you heard the treasurer's report. Do we have a motion to approve? So moved. Seconded by Heidi. All in favor? Opposed? That carries.
We also reviewed the September 2022 extracurricular account balances. Really not a lot of activity because, again, it's September, so everybody's kind of coming back, just starting to get them going. So we'll see much more activity in them. There was a total of $4,000 in deposits and $5,000 in expenditures, and some of those involved camps that we went through for the cheerleaders. So everything was standard. Everything seems to be going. We've now got the updated accounts lined up, so everything seems to be working perfectly within extracurricular. So you don't have to approve those. So also we have the review of bills. If anybody has any questions, the warrants are listed. Or you can drop down on the warrants within board docs. If you have any questions, please feel free to contact myself, and we'll be able to answer those. The next item we had was the disposal donation of athletic equipment. What we're looking for tonight is to actually do the resolution. We are working through that process that we talked about, whether we can auction it off. Auctions International is not a two-step process like we thought it was as we've gone through that. So we are looking to auction it off or to donate it or get scrap value. And that's the way that, but we want to be able to move forward once we can do it. So what we want to do is, what we're looking to do is just do a resolution for the disposal / donation of the attached equipment listed, which is there. So then, therefore, when we do go through this and get things set, we can just get rid of it. So we're not waiting a whole nother month to get rid of it. So, but our primary goal is to get money for it. If not, we'll be looking to donate.
Okay, so you heard the recommendation, be it resolved, the Board of Education of the Hudson Falls Central School District approves the disposal donation of the attached equipment listed. And there's the list there. Have we have any questions on that? Okay, do we have a motion? Seconded by? Seconded by Amanda. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That carries.
And we had a late addition. It was after the audit meeting. But we don't want to hold things up here either. As we're starting to look to make moves with the capital project, one of those is the library. The librarians have been cleaning out some of the older books that they feel are not needed. They're actually stored in a back area there because what we're going to be doing is we're going to be moving the library to another location while construction occurs. So this is a great opportunity to kind of trim down some of the stock that we have, things that aren't used, and dispose of them. So there's a list. It's a very long list. That's within board docs, but what we're basically looking for is to dispose of those, to get the board for approval for disposal or donation if anybody is looking to take them, of those library books, the listed library books. So we have that resolution there. We just look to move forward with that.
I want to make one comment. So you also have the weeding the library document there that tells you how they choose what goes. It isn't a random thing. There's a set procedure that they follow. Sorry.
So after reviewing the long list of books, do we have any questions?
How have they been disposed of in the past?
The same way.
If you go back over many years, there used to be groups that would buy them or come and take them. Those are far and few between now. So depending on them, if they're like ragged and just not in good shape, they get thrown away.
I know Crandall Library does a book sale every year, and they probably take them I'd hate to see them get thrown out.
No, some of those books are 50 years old. They're encyclopedias from 50 years.
And they've been sitting in storage, not being used, but we'll take a look at what's in decent condition, and that'll be an avenue with some of those. But I'll be honest with you, some of these books are just just for the condition.
Anybody else have any questions? Okay. Be it resolved, the Board of Education of the Hudson Falls Central School District approves the disposal donation of the attached high school library books. Do we have a motion? So moved by Vince, seconded by Amanda. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That carries.
That concludes the audit committee.
Okay. That moves us to transportation. Dr. Steele.
There's a resolution there. Kevin, do you want to do that?
Yep.
Do you want to talk about that?
Yep, I'll do that at the end.
At the end?
Yep.
The DOT report is right there, the trip report is right there. A little update on our buses. We're still waiting on our 66 passenger bus from NYBS, so The news here is that the smaller 3/4 ton bus that we had ordered sounds like it's not going to come in. And it's, the chassis for that bus is not going to be made, and Ford is not making any more of those, so we're just not going to get that, from what I understand. Possibly with those funds, we'll be buying a new S20 type of express van and S16, which is a type of SUV. You can read some details about that there. Any update on that, Kevin?
No, there is not. We're trying to determine the legality of it because of the way the resolution is written on what flexibility we have. We've run into the fact that the prescribed chassis is not going to be made. And that company, we're dealing with something else with that company with a build out that's not occurring. I have to get a legal opinion on if we can do that or how we can move forward with that. So we're waiting on that opinion. They're looking into see exactly what we can do.
So if we can, I guess we're going to do that. Those are two areas of need within our fleet, so I guess there's more to come on that. Workforce, as far as our workforce goes, it's not a lot of change there. Still looking for drivers. We're covering our routes best we can right now. As I understand it, we've doubled up on some routes to consolidate on some routes to get the kids here on time as effectively as possible. Heidi left. Maybe, Dan, you can fill us in. There's a note on the greener future. So New York State has recently been talking about pushing school districts toward EV buses. By 2035, our entire fleet must be EV.
Right, and any purchase after 2027. So that was why I took Heidi over to look at the electric buses. So in the state, there's a work group of transportation supervisors, along with folks from the transportation industry, meeting to talk with state folks to say, hey, have you thought about all these other complicating factors that are going to happen? Right now, there has those meetings continue. But right now, there's been nobody saying we're going to pull back on that 2027 date. So we are in the loop, getting the information we need, but the board will get more information from us because we're concerned about our infrastructure. It may have to be addressed in a building project to have charging stations, and they're saying that these buses need to be kept inside in the climate that we're in, so all buses need to be inside with heaters. Right now, we have plug-in stations outside for our diesels. We don't have a garage that's even big enough for them. So what we've been told from an accuracy standpoint is the problems haven't been identified yet, so we don't know what don't go advocating yet because all the problems haven't been identified yet. Let them identify the problems, and then we'll speak to the prospective legislators and try to work out a workable plan. In the meantime, I think electric buses are pretty cool anyways, but we don't want to buy things based on what I think is cool. I understand.
Do they have any information on life of the battery or capacity of the buses or anything like that?
So when we just stopped and looked at one, the salespeople were talking to other folks, we snuck in behind, but those are some of the items that are on that list, like the cost of the battery, and there's folks that are talking about by the time you cost out the battery and the electricity, the financial savings aren't there. And where is this electricity being generated, and what is the carbon footprint of that electricity is being generated? So it's all those same things that you would hear in a circle, maybe having a conversation just with a group of friends who would try to troubleshoot this. So we're trying to get it statewide. And the other piece is that they're making, I think it's less than 5% of the total buses the state would need for any 1 year are actually being produced right now. So there's a surprise, surprise, there's the supply chain issue. More to come, is what I can say.
And that was the end of the transportation report outside of the resolution.
We had another late request that came in, basically, and this came out of a trip, and this is relatively new. We used to have a couple gas carts at the transportation department. And what that would allow is if somebody went away for training and took one of our vehicles, we give them a gas cart so that they could fill up and come back. We actually had to close the 2 gas carts we had because they hadn't been used in 2 years. So what we're running into now is we had a longer field trip that went away a couple of weeks ago, and we filled, the bus was filled up here, but by the time, they didn't have enough to make it all the way back. That's how far the trip was out. And the driver ended up having to stop and get gas and put it on their personal, which that creates a whole other story. So what we're looking to do is we're looking to get a credit card with a $500 limit on it. So the exposure is very low that we would ever have on it. Where when somebody's going on a trip, or if somebody is taking one of our vehicles and going to a conference, let's say that when you went out to school boards, you took a school vehicle, we could give you that credit card with a $500 limit on it so that you could get gas to and from there. Actually, get it here and then on your way back. And we try to keep that limit low. Like I said, this is something that just came up, but it's something that will prevent this from us having an issue with that in the future, and it's a very low limit. So anytime that we're going to take out a credit card or additional credit card in any way, we just want the board to be notified of it and actually would like approval from the board to do that.
Would it ever be a situation where we had two buses that have, to maybe have more than one card? Just to be on the safe side, possibly?
We could do that, but my guess is we'll probably run into the same thing where when it's not used for a certain period of time, they'll just shut it off. I'll be honest with you, we haven't had that need in several years. It just came up with that trip, but we can also plan that. To answer your question, Jeff, I don't foresee it coming up. Okay. And I just worry about having a second credit card. I don't want to have any more credit cards here than we have to.
Okay. I agree. So, does anybody have any questions pertaining to that? Okay. So be it resolved, the Board of Education of the Hudson Falls Central School District approves the Transportation Department to obtain a credit card with a $500 limit to purchase gas. We have a motion. Brian? Seconded by?
Second.
Mark? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That carries.
One more thing is the electric charging stations is something, I'm sure Mr. Wickman is well aware of what's going on in the world. But is this something that maybe he ought to have on his radar for phase 2 or phase 3?
I would say probably phase 3, but yeah, absolutely. And he does to a certain extent. We haven't spent a lot of time in buildings and grounds talking about it, but for sure we've had that conversation.
All right, thank you.
Okay, that concludes the transportation. How about we go to buildings and grounds, Mr. Gallo?
3 short updates here. The state has changed their lead threshold, so our testing is coming up soon on dates to be determined. Capital projects, no major delays. Moving forward, as you all saw, the chain link fence out front, so shovels in the ground. That's great news, so we're very pleased about that after this long 5-year process, we're finally doing something. And as of our October 26th Buildings and Grounds meeting, the high school interior cameras had all been completed. The exterior cameras were almost done at that time. Maybe they're done by now. Yep. And they do have a 30-day video hold on them, so the district will be able to go back 30 days to view any videos on those cameras. That's all I have.
Okay. Any questions? Okay, outstanding. That concludes building and grounds. We move to policy. Mrs. Lansman.
Okay. You will see in your board docs, as Mr. Ward alluded to, we have a first read and a second read of the same policy, which is not normally how we do things, but this is to make Mr. Murray, I have it written down here somewhere, the Food Nutrition Services Coordinator, he makes him a purchasing agent for goods, services, and food. So as per our food service audit, it's on here for the first read, it needs to be approved for the second read. So that's why it's on there twice for that. You'll also see in red here, Mr. Ward had mentioned that the new FMLA policy would go into effect once all the MOAs had been signed, and that happened on October 21st, so it is in effect as of now, or as of then. You will also see, for first reads on there, our DEI policy. So the ad hoc committee met twice this month to discuss the proposed policy that you see here. The heart of this policy is simply making everyone feel a sense of belonging in our schools. There were teachers, support staff, parents, and admin reps present along with the policy committee members. While absolutely no one is against facilitating that sense of belonging, we did have some good back and forth discussion over the 2 days, which included concerns as far as the training on and implementation of the policy, as well as concerns about the ramifications of and potential down the road New York State involvement in enacting a policy like this. But there was also comments from around the table that Hudson Falls is already doing a lot of the wonderful things, or many wonderful things, to ensure everyone in our district feels that strong sense of belonging that we want to get from this policy. And the question was asked, do we even really need it at all? Because we're already doing all these great things to make everybody feel like they belong. While there were those concerns, the majority of people around the table agreed at the end of the last meeting to bring the document to the board for a first read solely for the purpose of letting everyone else outside the policy committee lay eyes on it just to know what we've been talking about. So we are very process-driven, and as is our process, that is why it's here for you to just look at, not to pass, not to vote on, but just to see so you know what's going on, and to give you the opportunity to ask any questions you might have, either tonight if you've had a chance to read through it and digest it, or after the fact if you have those questions. And I would encourage you to direct those questions to Mr. Ward or Mr. DiCaprio. And that's all I have.
We need the one to be approved.
Yeah, we just need to approve the
5411. Yep, procurement of goods, services.
So thank you for that update, Mrs. Landsman. So we do have to make a resolution on the second read of policy 5411, procurement of goods and services and food. Do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Moved by Heidi, seconded by?
Second.
Mike, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, opposed? That carries.
If there's any feedback on the other policy, if I could have it prior to the next policy committee meeting, that would be,
yes,
that would keep our time frame, right?
Yeah.
Because the plan is then to meet with the ad hoc group again to share back.
So please take the time to definitely look at that and really comb through it. It's pretty extensive, so I mean, at this point in time, please review that, and obviously, we want to have an open discussion on that, so.
Yeah, and the last piece is additionally, at your seats, there should have been information for one specific member of the committee.
Yes.
That sent an email along with a letter. I wanted to make sure everybody knows that you have that there. I wanted to make sure that you all had access to that.
Yes, thank you.
Got it.
Okay. So that concludes the policy committee report. Now we go to advocacy PR. Mrs. Andrikowitz.
Okey dokey. Try and keep it short. We already did the conference update from NYSBA, and I just want to remind everybody that ASBA is coming up on November 17th, and we have Hudson Falls providing the entertainment, so our students are going to be there. So anybody who can make it, I would really encourage you to do so, because our students make us super proud.
Yes.
And ASBA always is a good, resource.
It's
development too.
board superintendent relations that night too, I think is the topic.
Yes.
Did you want to give an update on your BOCES group legislative priorities?
Yep, so the last meeting actually got canceled, but they did, a draft of the updated priorities were sent out. I'm going to go back and mention one of the ones that Kevin mentioned that may or may not make the list, so we may reformat how we present this information when we go and talk with the legislators. That $100,000 project, we are advocating, and we advocated very hard last year to get it to $250,000. It didn't gain any traction, so that group, the advocacy committee from which we both see, we're trying to figure out, we don't want to go and ask for something that's never going to gain any traction or not going to gain any traction this year, because we've had pretty good luck in gaining traction, making great strides for the area schools, including Hudson Falls. So once I have the next draft, I'll share with everybody. Right now, there's been no feedback from the group on the draft, so I'd like to wait till I have feedback from the advocacy committee at the BOCES level before we bring it back to this group.
Okay, great. And then, nerd alert, we had the legislative priority vote update, and it was 15 minutes shy of being a 6-hour meeting, but I think it's better than it was in the past because I did not attend in person, and I was kind of pumped about attending at the end of the conference this year, but they changed it to kind of be virtual now going forward. And I think it's more convenient and they have better attendance because by the end of the conference, folks are tired, they just want to go home. And there was a robust attendance, and I really recommend anybody, any board member can tune in and watch the process. But I sent out the list of priorities to all of you guys. If you just skim through them and just like read the top sentence, and then there's a summary that you can read at length if you want, but it really spanned a huge amount of topics that are relevant to boards across New York State. Gun laws was a big one, and there was great debate, robust debate over that. Laws about pilot programs, which have been increasingly relevant to this board. DEI kept coming up, faith-based education, funding for charter schools, foundation aid. I mean, these are topics that are super relevant to every board in New York State. And it was nice to get kind of a finger on the pulse of where other boards in New York State are in comparison to our board. It was interesting to hear board members from all across the state because there were very tiny schools being represented and also gigantic schools from down in Long Island and Westchester area. And also, it's a great process. It's our country's political process at work. So it is a little clunky because you have to get patched in and you have to ask to be heard, and then you have 2 minutes. And it was funny to me that it's like this super technological process now, and they literally had one of those bells that you go bing when you go into a store. So some fool had to sit on the side every 2 minutes and be like bing, and that just made me laugh and giggle. So I sent out, and I think you might have gotten it in your NISBA, those weekly updates they send you on your email. Anyway, they sent out the ones that passed. Not all of them passed, but you got to vote on whether or not you thought NISBA should be lobbying for these types of things. So it was super interesting. And I got to do it in my pajamas, and, it was pretty comfy. Cooked some dinner. It was part of the political process. So it was neat. It's always a great process. So if you have any questions, you can go to your email about what passed and what didn't pass. And in the future, if any of you, want to talk about some of the stuff that's up, I was voting what I thought our boards would vote for, but I'm one person. And that's all I have.
Very good.
Any questions? Well, thank you very much. That concludes our committee agenda, portion of the agenda. We do have a need for executive session. Do we have a reason to go back into regular session after executive session?
Yeah, so we'll come back into regular, but I do not anticipate there being any need for any action whatsoever.
Okay.
There are just a few items I have to discuss with the board that require us to be in executive session, having to do with the employment of specific individuals and potential contract negotiations.
Okay. We have a motion to enter executive session. So moved by Mike, seconded by Amanda. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're going to make a motion to enter a regular session again. Do
So
we
moved.
have a motion?
So moved.
So moved, Amanda, seconded
Second.
by Mike. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Now that we're back into regular session, do I hear a motion to, do you have anything that we, nothing? Okay.
Nothing to take any
So
action on.
at this point in time, we have nothing to take action on, so we need a motion to end regular session.
So moved.
So moved by Amanda, seconded by Heidi. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So carried. Thank you. Have a wonderful